let's talk about Callisto Protocol for just 1 second and Striking Distance Studio and its head, Glenn Schofield. Now, Glenn Schofield has showed up at a lot of these Jeff Keighley shows to talk about Callisto Protocol, because I think Callisto Protocol has been shown off. It was initially revealed at Game Awards. Was that 2021 or 2020? Must have been 2020, because we didn't hear about it for a long time. And it's sort of showed up at pretty much every single Jeff Keighley show since. We most recently saw it at Opening Night Live, where Glenn Schofield came out and, just like, we're excited for the game, all that sort of stuff. And he tweeted yesterday, he tweeted this. I only talk about the game during an event. We are working 6 to 7 days a week. Nobody's forcing us. Exhaustion, tired, COVID, but we're working. Bugs, glitches, perf fixes. One last pass through audio. 12 to 15 hour days. This is gaming. Hard work. Lunch, dinner, working. You do it because you love it. First of all, this tweet is worded terribly. But second of all, and perhaps more concerning, is, hey, Glenn, what the fuck? Just like coming out and being like, here's how we're crunching right now. 6 to 7 days a week working on the game. And the studio head, right, is saying all this stuff. You're working during lunch. You're working during dinner. We're here 12 to 15 hours a day. 6 to 7 days a week. That's terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. Like, we've been talking about these sort of workplace treatments since we started doing this show, right? And to just so casually talk about it like this, I think just really sucks. Especially for a game that people seem to be very, very excited about. We'll get to the follow-up in a second here, but just initially, Justin, how does this initial tweet grab you? By the way, he did delete it afterwards and after he makes his response here, but what do you think?
I mean, last week we talked about how this game looked like it could use a couple more months in the oven.
Sure.
And the fact that this is how they're talking about the game and this is how much work they're putting into the game, that already the trailer at Gamescom looked like a little buggy. And if they're still putting this much work in, how is this game coming out this year? And like, if this game is coming out this year, is it worth putting in this kind of like stress and these kind of hours in order to get this game out? I don't think so.
Well,
like, I think this is really just furthering the idea that I don't. At a certain point, if you need to do this to finish the game and hit this deadline, it like push it back.
Agreed. I mean, you've still got 3 months until this game comes out. So like, based on the footage that we saw, like, yeah, it didn't look awesome this most recent time, but it is one of those things where like the visual stuff does get added last. That sort of polished stuff does get added last. But I'm just more concerned about like these are like terrible working conditions. If you're working 15 hours, 6 to 7 days a week, you're just going home to sleep and do nothing else, right? Like, you're not seeing your family, you're not seeing your kids. To me, this sounds like the sort of thing where like you're bringing sleeping bags to work, right? Because at that point, like, why even go home? Like, that's the most concerning thing to me. And just like the fact that this is a brand new studio, right, made for this game, and those are the working conditions. You don't do it because you love it, Glenn Schofield. You do it because your boss is there, because you're there. And yeah, you're saying nobody's forcing you to be anyone to be there, but that's what all crunch culture is, right? No one's forcing you. It's not mandatory. Sometimes it is mandatory, right? Like, I think we talked about with Cyberpunk 2077, like, they had mandatory crunch. But like, yeah, the idea of like, well, no one's forcing us to be here. We're here because we love the game. I don't know, man. I think if you're doing this for 3 months, at least 3 months before the game comes out, like, at a certain point, that love for the video game like has to come second to other things in people's lives, right? I don't know. It's just such a weird brag, right? Such a weird brag, such a poor reading of the room of what the current feeling for the industry is, right? What the current, like, how people feel about these sort of workplaces and workers' rights, and it's just, I don't know. It just sucks. So he deleted that tweet and followed it up by saying, anyone who knows me knows how passionate I am about the people I work with. Earlier, I tweeted about how proud I was of the effort and the hours the team was putting in. That was wrong. We value passion and creativity, not long hours. I'm sorry to the team for coming across like this. And I do think like that's a good response, right? However, you do value the amount of time that people are putting into this. You do value long hours. If you are saying like, no, we value creativity. Like we value all this sort of stuff. Just because he deleted the tweet doesn't mean that those things aren't happening though. Right? Because clearly they are. And clearly he's proud of the work that people are putting in. And like, there is a sense of pride, right? About working really hard on something and it finally coming out and being great. But like, by him just saying like, we value passion and creativity, not long hours. Like, I don't think that like, of course you value those things. But like, just by saying that, it doesn't mean that you aren't doing this horrible crunch stuff. You know what I'm saying about that?
Yeah, I think there's always this like odd fine line when we're thinking about it. I think step one, my overall thing is that unionize. That's important, right?
Yeah.
You need to have protections against stuff like this, that if you're being forced to do it. And I do agree with you that it does sound, a lot of this seems to be like, I'm proud, right? I think that's something that I'm sure Glenn Schofield was proud of the work that they're doing on this game and is proud of the work that they're doing on this game.
Of course.
But when it comes off like that you're talking about this and it's clearly just defining like this kind of like negative crunch culture and stuff like that, and they're 3 months away from this game and they're already pulling these kind of hours and doing this kind of stuff, like that is insane. But like there is that fine line when you're working on something that you got to put some of your brain out of the 9-to-5 day in order to get it done, right? Like there are times when you're working and like you gotta work hard in order to do it. One of the things I always say is that we shouldn't be working harder, we should be working more efficiently. And we need to strive for video game culture where you still want to work hard, you still need to put a lot of time in to make these games and stuff like that. But fixing deadlines, thinking about ways to be more efficient when you are working so you're not forcing these 12 to 15 hour kind of days and stuff like that, I think is an important thing to strive for. But when you're positively talking about these kind of work conditions, I think that is where it can be problematic, and that's where it can be you're creating this culture of rewarding the crunch rather than like, okay, like, yeah, we need to get work done, but like, how can we make this so this is not the way it is, if that makes sense. And I think like, I mean, you're familiar with like getting something done on a deadline, right? Like, I think that stuff can be like an important, that like you have to at some point in your life put a lot of work in to make a deadline that you have to hit. I also find a lot of times that we have to do that because we did not manage our time efficiently beforehand. You know what I mean? Waiting to the last minute to do it. But the idea here is that you want to look at this and you can be proud of your workers and employees. But if this tweet was like, we've been working really hard, putting in these 12 to 15 hour days, that's unacceptable. We have to find a way to be better as a company. And because of that, we're delaying the game 3 months. That's a marketing win, not a financial win, probably, if you're delaying the game. But like, you can't look at this and be proud of it. You got to try to fix it.
Right. It's just like, it's so wild that he would tweet out like, here's how terrible our working conditions are right now. And we're like, just guys being dudes. We love it. It's like, guys being don'ts. How about?
Yeah,
and don't do that.
I mean, you might like it, but is that healthy? Is that good for your family? Does your family like it? And if they do like it, maybe they shouldn't be your family.
Well, but I don't know. Like Glenn Schofield, yes, you know, like I personally, I love to put a lot of time into a project and work really hard on it and then get it done. I love that. That's me personally. And I like to choose when I have a project like that, right? I don't want to have to do that for 3 months straight. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Glenn Schofield, you're the I don't know if you're the creative director or you're the director of this game or the whole studio. I think you're like the head of the studio. Yeah, he's a CEO and he's the director of the game. You can't like, you might like that, but since you're the boss, you're like allowed to like that. You know what I mean? And you don't have to check in with anyone else to see like, hey, is this a good idea? Like, are we enjoying this? Whatever. I don't know. I like at this point, we're just like repeating the same stuff, but
oh, I mean, it's not even this article. It's just the crunch culture in general, because unfortunately this happens way too often.
Precisely. Yes. It was such a weird pull for the director of this game to be like, here's the crunch conditions, fucking love it. It's
right.
like, whoa. I don't know, man.
Moral of the
So,
story,
there you go.
unionize.
Yes, please.
Do it.